No problem, Beverly. No problem at all. Thank you, guys. I'd like to welcome you to the June meetup. And typically when I pick a topic, I pick a topic because it's something I find interesting in the space. And so we did a topic a few weeks ago or a few months ago on quantum computing, just because I didn't know anything about it, wanted to learn a little bit more. We did one on GAN, generative adversarial networks, and that was similar. And deepfake is something that I have been fascinated with for about a year now. And one of the things that that has fascinated me about deepfakes is just potential, for the sake of a better argument, good and evil. I'm application real quick because I think I'm running into some bandwidth issues, but we'll kind of go from there. Okay. So I first was introduced to deepfakes in August of last year when I was at DEF CON. I attended DEF CON for the first time and was at the AI. The audio is dropping. I am hearing. This is probably the one that's most likely to be the problem candidate. Okay. So hopefully that helps, Andy. I went to the AI village. And what they do at DEF CON is they have a number of villages that are focused on they're very similar to meetups. They're kind of a smaller collection of people that are focused on a specific topic. And so they had a cloud computing, they had IoT, they had all sorts of things, but they had an AI one. And the keynote was presented by the CTO of the Democratic National Convention. And he actually did a deep fake of the chairman of the Democratic National Convention. And the way they couched it was they had they said, oh, he's coming in via Zoom. And so it was a little grainy and it had some imperfections, but you know what? Until the very end, I would have thought it was the real thing. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk a little bit about deep fakes in general today. And Beverly's already talked about it, you know, Word Solutions. We work with operators all around the world, presented at a lot of conferences. If you're interested to learn a little bit more about automation, we do have a complimentary webinar on June 26th. If you go to our website, awardsolutions.com, you'll find it. And then we haven't gotten it scheduled yet, but we are going to do one on AI use cases for video as a complimentary webinar. So in both of those cases, you're welcome to attend. Okay. I don't usually need to do a warning before any of our presentations. I felt compelled to give a warning today because I wanted to make sure it's clear. What I want to talk about is the technology of deepfakes. Deepfakes can be used for entertainment purposes. We're actually going to look at a couple of examples here in the next couple of minutes. But they also can be used for malicious purposes. And as a matter of fact, the malicious purposes are the things that are getting the attention. And so I want us to focus on the technology, but the malicious intention portion of this, it can't be ignored. And I just want to say, me personally, as well as Award Solutions as a whole, and I would say probably everybody on this meetup, but I want to speak for me personally, we do not condone the exploitation of anyone for any reason. And so utilizing deepfake technology to exploit someone, anyone, we do feel is very wrong. I can't stress that enough. So please use technology responsibly. That being said, what I want to talk a little bit about is three things in the time that we have today. One, I want to talk about what a deepfake is. Two, I want to talk a little bit about the very, very short history of deepfakes. We're not talking about a technology that's been around for decades. We're talking about a technology that really has only been used in the last, in the last few years. And then where I want to spend a lion's share of our time is how does it work? And that's really the thing that I think is of interest to us. I have a number of references. I'll talk about a number of things as part of this. So we'll start with what is a deepfake. So jump into the chat. I'm interested in your opinion. We'll spend just a couple of minutes doing this. So first, in the participants window, give me a green check if you were familiar with the concept of deepfakes prior to coming into our meetup today. A red X if you were not. And those of you who give me a green check, in the chat, how would you define it? How would you define a deep fake to kind of start off our discussion? So far I've got a few people who've responded, and I've got more yeses than nos right now. How would you define a deep fake? Beverly and I were talking a little bit about this earlier, and actually, as part of that conversation, I think that there's not a concrete definition. So we're going to kind of talk about it kind of as in general. Marta has using machine learning, deep learning to generate a plausible fake, digitally created or modified videos. Both of those are great answers. And so we talked a little bit about 2 months ago, I think it was 2 months ago, generative adversarial networks, or GANs. And that was what was used to generate a plausible fake image. And we used the term, or we looked at a website called This Person Doesn't Exist, and we saw kind of fake people. And they're people that don't really exist, but a AI algorithm generated them. And just as Andy and Ron Dagdag is saying in the chat, what we're dealing when we're dealing with deepfakes is how to create a video that's modified in very specific ways. And then Beverly is putting in here is it's not just the video, it's also potentially audio as well, created digitally with AI. Okay. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to take that discussion a little bit farther. And so this is, so I'm old school. And so if I'm going to look up a definition, I'm going to start with, the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. So I went to merriam-websters.com. Actually, I went to Google, and this is what came up. And a deepfake are videos that use AI technology to, and this is one of the key things, to paste a celebrity face onto a different body. Now, this term, the celebrity piece is starting to fade away. And we'll talk about why that is in a minute. But really, the key first definition that I want us to think about is I'm pasting one face onto a different body. And that's really where it started. And as I've already said, we have to kind of go down this path that originally started with pornography. It started with taking one woman's face and pasting it onto another woman's body in videos. It also is moving into the area, as we can start to see here, of potentially replacing things or changing things in videos for the sake of political purposes. Now, again, don't advocate either of these, but this is what we're really dealing with. Now, as Beverly is pointing out, it's not just video. Most of the time when people think of the term deep fake, they think video. They think that replacement of the face. It also could be the replacement of audio. It could also be creating an artificial copy of someone's voice and using that to make it seem like we're having an interview with this politician, and in this radio interview, this politician said something that was not something that they would say. This is a very, very important topic. As a matter of fact, I picked this topic a few weeks ago, and since I picked the topic, a number of news articles have come out, and some as recently as today. So this came out last week, last Monday, and this was in Vox, and it was a video, and I'm not going to show you the video, but basically it was Kristen Bell, as well as a lawyer from Australia, not a celebrity, who had deep fake pornography created about them. And again, it's horrific, and I'll let you watch this. It's very valuable to see. It does really show you the amount of damage that can happen to someone. And so this is what we talk about. I wanted to give an example, and obviously I want to give an example that I think we're going to actually enjoy. So I've got two short videos. Jump into the chat if the audio isn't great. I think it's good, but both of them, it's more the video is what's important more so than the audio. The first one is by someone on YouTube who goes by the name the Fake Aney. And it is probably my favorite. See, let me get it to come up. Oh, here it is. It's probably my favorite deep fake video that I've seen. And if it doesn't come up, I'll kind of. Okay, past the. Not sponsoring anybody. There it is.
Are you coming along?
Mama said not to be taking rides from strangers.
This is a busted school.
I'm Forrest Gump.
I'm Dorothy Harris.
Well, now we ain't strangers anymore. Slate's taken.
Yeah, I'm getting in the chat. That's it's a little choppy, but look at the. So we'll just. I want to move. I'm going to fast forward.
Here. What's wrong with your legs? I'm nothing at all, thank you. My legs are just fine and dandy.
I just sat next to her on that bus and had a conversation all the way to
in this
school.
particular deepfake, and again, I think the technology is not going to really support me showing these as well as I'd like. But in this particular deepfake, it was, I don't know, do anyone see what's whose face we superimposed onto young Forrest? So yeah, this one was, I like this one. This one was cool because they took Keanu Reeves and they superimposed him onto young Forrest here. And the best part was also Jenny. That was the part that kind of, when I saw Jenny, I was laughing. I thought that was just hilarious. And then I'm not going to show it just because I think the video is not going to turn out all that great. But another example is a group called Next Face, and they superimposed on the Wizard of Oz some of the key members of the Avengers. And so they have the guy who played, I never can remember his name, the guy who played Star-Lord in the Guardians of the Galaxies, I don't remember his name. And then Robert Downey Jr. is the Scarecrow, and Chris Helmsworth is the Cowardly Lion, and the best one is Tom Holland, the guy who played Spider-Man, as Dorothy. And so this is kind of what we're talking about for a deep fake. So that's what deep fakes are. It's that replacing of images. Now I want you to notice, I know it was a little choppy, and so go back and watch some of these things later on, but it's not just taking a static image and replacing a face. This is taking and using an AI algorithm, we'll talk about how that works here in a few minutes, and finding one person's face and replacing it with another person's face in the image. That's really what deep faking is all about. So let's talk a little bit of a history of deep fakes, and it's not a very long history. So if we go back to July of 2017, we didn't use the term deep fake, but there was some of the early technology was being used, and it faked some footage of Obama. And in this, we saw Jordan Peele doing an Obama impression. So the audio was Jordan Peele, and they took images of Obama and superimposed it to make it look like he was saying these things. Now, if you were to watch the video, it's pretty obviously not him. And that's not really the point. The point is that's kind of the nucleus of this. Now, fast forward to December of 2017. There was a Reddit group, or I'm sorry, a Reddit user who started to post on Reddit pictures, porn videos, where the actress was replaced with famous actresses. Specifically, one of the early ones was Gal Gadot. She played Wonder Woman. And it's pretty obvious. Things just don't look right, but still, that was one of the early views. Now, the reason we call these things deep fake is because that user's name was deep fake. And so the term really comes from him. So the nucleus of this concept of deep fake really does come from this, the pornography side of it. There was an article that came out in late December by Vice's Motherboard branch, and if you've not read that, that focuses more on the technology side of news. And you get into February of 2018, so we're only talking a little over 2 years ago, Reddit banned one, that user, and two, those types of videos. By January of 2018, we had the first app to help make these videos that was available. Come into June of 2019, we started to see more and more deep fakes appearing on Facebook, and we started to see House Intelligence Committee meetings about the legality of these things. So we are really very much at the beginning of this phenomenon. It's only been going on for a couple of years. And so that's what makes this a very interesting topic. And there's a lot of people who will put a lot of things about this. I saw an article, or I saw a video about this late last week, where people were talking about the ethical ramifications of this. And one of the things they said that I thought was so interesting was Because we can't trust what we see, we're starting to see people develop what at least this one philosopher, this one person was referring to as reality apathy. So therefore, even though you're seeing it, it used to be, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, now I can't even believe it if I do see it. And this type of technology is sowing a lot of distrust into some of these areas. But I found this really fascinating. It's such a recent topic. As a matter of fact, over the last week, this one came out last Friday, Facebook has sponsored a challenge to being able to identify deep fakes. So what they did is they created a number of videos. Some of them were regular videos and some of them were deep fakes. And they had people write algorithms to detect were they fake or not. And the winning algorithm was 62% accurate. And I think there's been some revisions to this in the last couple of days, because this article also came out in that same time frame. This was on The Verge. This came out. So from there, at least The Verge is saying that it's still an unsolved problem, because we are still seeing a large amount of, they're saying it's only about 65% effective. And then another one, this is from MIT. Oh, that was a different one. Yeah, and this was another one that came out also later in the day on Friday. Deepfakes aren't very good, nor are there tools to detect them by Wired. So it is a very critical topic today. I'm going to put these other resources that I just showed you into the chat for anybody who's interested. Okay, so that's really what deepfakes are. I know that was a little rushed, but I wanted to kind of get through what they are so we can get to how they're created. Let me pause for a second. Are there any questions, comments, thoughts? All right, excellent. Okay, so how does it work? So we talked a little bit about before that generative adversarial network. And for those of you who missed that, that's an important thing to think about, important thing to kind of have as a background. So what a generative adversarial network is doing is, you can think of a GAN as being composed of two parts. The best analogy I've heard of goes like this. You have one that's called the artist, and you have another part that's called the art critic. Now the art critic, what the art critic has done is it's taken a number of real pictures. In the case of the does this person exist, human faces. And it takes those real faces and it learns how to determine what a face is. What the artist does is it provides a fake face and then it gets feedback. And over time, this fake face starts to look like a real face. So the reason this is referred to as a generative adversarial network, the adversarial part is because you have these two AI algorithms that are really fighting each other. I'm sending information over and it's giving me feedback is it really look like a face or not? The generative is because what this artist algorithm is doing is it's learning over time how to make the face more and more realistic. So this feedback is basically teaching this thing how to learn. And if you weren't with us when we did the discussion, let me just show you one thing real quick because I think it's important. This person does not exist.com. This is my favorite overall website, I think, in the entire internet. So this person doesn't exist. This is an artificially created face by an AI algorithm. Now, this one's pretty good. Some of them are less good. But my point is that adversarial portion of this is important to understand how the deepfake works. Now, a good amount of the pictures, a good amount of the discussion that I'm presenting comes from an article that appeared on Medium a while back. And it's actually a 4-part series. It was very, very good on how to create deepfakes and how to detect deepfakes. And I can't, in the course of an hour, go into anywhere near as much detail. But let's say that we want to take these two images here, image 1 and image 2. And what our goal is to take the face of image 2 and replace it onto image 1. Okay. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to look at what's referred to, we look at all these images and we have to detect what's referred to as latent factors. Latent factors are the aspects of the face, specific aspects of the face. So where do the cheekbones? Where's the chin? Where's the nose? How far apart are the eyes? And you'll notice, and I really like the example that Jonathan Hugh here used, because what I really like in this example is how different the two faces look. You'll see that the woman's face at the top, image 1, is kind of long and thin. And you'll see the lower face her face is not as thin. And so you can imagine there's got to be some change, some transformation to make that happen. And so the first thing we do is we find these latent features. Now, these are two static images, but imagine if they were videos, right? So you'd have to find all of the different positions and how the mouth was moving and the eyes and eyes blinking and all of that. So the first thing we're doing is we're running thousands and thousands of pictures of each of these two women through this algorithm to find all of these latent features. So the first thing I want you to see in this is the volume of images that you need is very, very high. One tutorial that I saw that I thought was very interesting was that it takes 20 minutes of video minimum if you're going to use your face to replace it with someone else's. And so this was a video where he was trying to show replacing his face onto one of the two burglars from Home Alone. And he'd even grown his beard to look similar to one of the burglars, so it's easier for the algorithm to work. But he would sit there and he would have the camera going and he would talk and he'd make the same, expressions that the character made in the movie so that he can have all of those images. And then he ran it through this algorithm to do exactly what we're talking about here. That's step 1. Step 2, we'll do a basic replacement of the image. Okay, so we've identified, we found the face, we found those latent features of the face. And then we've replaced one face with the other face. Now look at the face on the left. Look at the face on the left and look at the face on the right. And you'll see it doesn't look right, right? So we've replaced it with the face of this second woman. But the big thing in my mind is notice this chin, right? This chin just doesn't look right. Everything else looks pretty good. But it still doesn't look perfect. So the first step is that basic replacement. Now, as you can imagine, if we did have somebody who was moving, as I turned my head, this side of my face would become visible and the image would turn, but you could start to see artifacts appear. Then we start to do some of that blending, some of that merging of these two images. So again, you can see there's still some challenges in the chins here. But those merging of these images allows that transformation to happen. Now there's some aspects of it, so let me pause for a second. Does this make sense, right? So really what we're doing is we're taking and we're using 2 or 3 forms of AI that we've talked about in the past, right? So if I come here and kind of give kind of a little bit of that summary of that deep fake, right? So one thing we're doing is we have 2 different streams where we're taking the image and we're trying to locate features of that image, right? So here's, we'll say person 1, person 2. The second thing that we're doing is after we've identified those features, we're then going through and trying to map specific aspects of those features so that we can do this replacement. And we're doing this many, many times. So you can almost imagine building a catalog of facial expressions. And so if I wanted to have a picture of someone looking straight ahead, then I would take something from that catalog of person looking straight ahead. If they turn to the side, we'll have a picture of the turn to the side. So the second thing that we have, we've identified the features of each of these, and then we're trying to, so in both cases, we're kind of building this catalog. And then what we can do is we can take features from one and replace it on the other. So the biggest challenge to all of this at this stage of the game is just the volume of work that needs to be done. Because I need typically thousands of pictures, and then I need kind of the footage of whatever I want to replace so that I can build this mapping. Let me pause for a second. Does that make sense? Questions, comments, thoughts? So that's kind of the basic approach. And as you can imagine, the longer the video, the more images that are needed. And really what's happening in this algorithm is it's taking every frame of the video and it converts each frame into a standalone picture. So if you think of a normal HD video at 60 frames a second, and so if I have a 5-minute video, right, 300 seconds at 60 frames a second, that's a large number of pictures. And then for every picture, we identify the face, and then we do that face replacement, picture after picture after picture. So it's very real-time intensive. There are some aspects of this that are very challenging. Actually, Beverly put into the chat at one point that because of I was showing that video of the Forrest Gump over Zoom, it was losing the movement of the lips. And you started to see some synchronization. So it's a little hard to see in the video I showed. But that is another challenge, is getting the lips to move with the words that you're trying to say. And so they're using a recurrent neural network to interpret the speech. And once they've interpreted the speech, they can synthesize the mouth and retime it so that it looks like the mouth is saying, matching the speech. And if you go back and you watch that Jordan Peele, Barack Obama video, that's the thing that is the most obvious to me, is the lips just look fake. Now they're getting better and they're getting better and they're getting better. But that's really one of those telltale signs, is that it just doesn't look like it matches. Another big challenge is the movement of their head. And taking these static images are great, but are you going to have an image that matches every possible choice, every possible movement of that target frame? So let's say, for example, I wanted to put my face on Robert Downey Jr.'s face in Iron Man. I have to make sure that every possible movement that he is doing, I have matched in some way. But what if I'm trying to do this of somebody else? I'll pick on my friend, Paul Shepard. He works also for Word Solutions. Let's say I wanted to take and put Paul's face on Chris Helmsworth. I'll be Iron Man and he can be Thor. And I'm not going to work with him ahead of time. I'm not going to video. I just can only take videos that he's produced and put online. So now I have a problem, because, well, one, it bothers me he wants to have his face on Thor, but two, I have a problem that I need to be able to simulate some of the movement that he didn't do naturally. And that's really what we were talking about here. So what's happening in this is it's not just trying to do that face mapping. It's actually trying to learn what they're referring to as landmarks of the face. And you'll notice it has kind of this stenciled out face here. And once you can find these particular landmarks, what you can do is you can then superimpose another image to making those same movements. And I've seen, how many people have seen the Bringing Mona Lisa to Life video? That is fascinating. What they did is they took Mona Lisa, one picture of the Mona Lisa, and they took actresses that were just doing a normal thing, and they superimposed the Mona Lisa on them, and just, it looks real. It's really impressive. Well, that's what they're doing. They're doing exactly this. They're finding these landmarks, matching these landmarks on the original Mona Lisa painting, and then synthesizing how that would move through this. As you can imagine, this is a much, 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 much harder problem to solve. than just the face swapping that we did before. And just like what we talked about with respect to these GANs, we're trying to create these new images. And you can even see this is synthesized. You can see his lips are just not, they don't quite look right. But it's close enough that our AI detection algorithm thinks it looks real. Now, I had one more video I wanted to show, because really what we've done is we've talked about the building of it, and it's very, very real-time intensive. If you wanted to do this, there are some applications out there. There is a Deepfakes lab, which is a open source software. You can download it off of GitHub and you can run it. The challenge is the processing time to get it to work. It does take an awful lot of time, and the longer the video that you're trying to build, the more time it takes to do all the learning and to apply this. And I'm talking, if you've got GPUs, it's still on the order of days, if not weeks, to get this to work. And so all of these guys that are making these videos and posting them on YouTube, creating kind of, the entertainment side of this, they're putting in a lot of effort, right? They're doing this because they're trying to create something that people will find funny and then kind of get monetized on YouTube. But one of the things that I think is also good for us to think about is to think about how do we detect these? And so we've already talked about the fact that Facebook has started a project, a competition to come up with algorithms to detect deep fakes. Now, why did they do that? They didn't do it for altruistic purposes, right? They did it because they need that technology to prevent people from putting deep fakes on Facebook. And so I think it's very good technology. Now, early on, there was a great presentation I saw last year when I was at DEF CON, and the presenter was talking about some of that research, and he talked about two things I thought was really, really interesting. One, he talked about the way that you would detect some of the early deep fakes was simple. Did they blink? Think about this for a second. If I wanted to create a deep fake of someone, what was the most prevalent information I had? Especially if I looked at someone's social media, probably images. Are you blinking in images? Well, typically those are specifically the ones we don't post on social media. So getting the deep fake to blink was one of the early challenges as well. The other thing that he said I thought was really interesting was, if you are someone who posts a lot of stuff on social media, one of the things they were working on was to create kind of a digital mesh. So when you're looking at this, if you look at kind of, for example, the image coming from my camera, you as a human being actually see my face. You see the fact that I've got, I call AI Fluffy as the virtual background. The computer doesn't see that. All a computer sees is pixels. And what it's trying to do is it's trying to use some mathematics. This is where convolutional neural networks come in. It's trying to use some mathematics to find kind of where does the color, where does the information change drastically? And that is a edge. So you can see the side of my head, where the side of my head is, there's a distinct change in color. Kind of from where my face to my beard, there's a distinctive change in color. The beard itself is changing color, not the color I'm really going for, but it's changing color. The point I'm trying to make is the computer is looking at that math. But what if I were to do this? What if I were to create a filter that messed with the numbers a little bit, made it a little bit harder, but it wasn't perceivable by the human eye. What have I accomplished? Well, what you've accomplished is basically making it to where the computer can't use that face as part of a deepfake algorithm. So that's something that they're working on as well, creating kind of this extra little bitmap that goes over an image that doesn't really blur it, doesn't make it hard for me to see it, but makes it harder for the computer to use it. So there was another video that I wanted to show you. It was a great video. It was a commercial, actually, where they created a deep fake as if it were from 1998. And it was Kenny Mayne here, basically talking about the Bulls, the Chicago Bulls, winning championship again, NBA championship, and then this would someday be made into a documentary, and it would someday be a commercial for State Farm. And so it's a pretty good example of not being able, or it's a pretty obvious deep fake, because just the face doesn't look right, the movement doesn't look right. But they weren't really trying to fake it. They weren't trying to fool anybody, right? They were trying to do this for a commercial. Because this is such a critical topic, there are, MIT has put together a website they call Can You Spot the Deep Fake? And what it is it's 2 videos. One of the videos has been manipulated. And what you do is you watch both videos and you pick which video do you think has been manipulated. And I played with this a little bit last week. It's pretty impressive. And it takes some skill to discern some of the subtle fakes. But I thought that was a really interesting website. Okay. Kind of a high-level overview of deep fakes over the last 45 minutes to an hour. Let me pause and see if there are any questions, comments, thoughts. Thank you, Beverly. Yeah, Beverly and I talked a little bit about this earlier today, and it is a very interesting topic. And I want to make sure that we do keep one thing in mind. When we use the term deepfake, I want us to really think of it being that AI algorithm that is doing some very sophisticated manipulation in some way. There are obviously very basic things. My sister-in-law, she was out camping, and someone took a picture of it, and it was her in front of a mountain, and it looked fake. It really, you know how sometimes you take a picture and you get the lighting just right and it looked fake? Well, this looked fake. And so what I did is I basically photoshopped her in other locations, and we kind of had fun with that. That's not deep faking. That's me goofing off on a Saturday afternoon. What we're really talking about is that real manipulation of the image. You know, I'll be Iron Man and Paul will be Thor. And if I do produce that video, I will share that with everybody, because that'll be pretty fun. Any other questions before we kind of wrap things up and kind of get back to our day? Oh, that's wrong. That is totally wrong. I changed the date, but it didn't actually change any of the other information. Ron he's not on here still. Ron presented last month. Our next meetup will be on July 20th at 11:30, same time. And Ron Dagdag, he was actually on the meetup for a while. He's dropped off. He has volunteered to speak. I'll get that nailed down and get that scheduled as soon as I can. If anybody does have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. If you do have ideas, and again, I'm asking for both ideas for meetups, because like I said, this deep fake one, this was interesting to me, may not have been interesting to anybody else, but please do feel free to reach out to me either through Meetup, or you can reach out to me directly. I'm always looking for more people to speak at this, just kind of a fun time that we have. And so please, if you do have questions, please feel free to jump on and ask. If not, hey guys, thank you so much. We're up to 1,300 and some odd members of our Meetup. We're gonna stay online for a while. Ashley, we're gonna stay online, I think, for a while, because we've started to get some people who attend outside of the Dallas area. And so I think we're gonna stay online just based off of kind of where things are, at least in Texas, with the number of cases going up. I would rather do this remotely and not wear a mask than to meet face-to-face and wear a mask. I will send out on the Meetup, once we get this, we'll post this onto our YouTube channel, and I will send the recording to everyone. And if you haven't heard from me, if you haven't seen it on the Meetup, please feel free to reach out to me. It's not that I don't want to do it. It's sometimes I just, you know, it slips off of my my radar. But otherwise, I hope to see you guys next month. Like I said, please look at awardsolutions.com if you want to attend these complimentary webinars that are coming up. Thank you, Ashley, Fergal, Kieran. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, special thank you to Beverly for, she and I had a discussion about this earlier today, and I think that was a very valuable discussion to help prepare for this. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Molly. And Beverly just put the sign up on the chat. Thank you for doing that, Beverly. I appreciate that.